Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Mormon Atheist. All right, apostates, it is early in the morning. So I definitely have my mason jar of coffee today. Today is December 30th. I want to shout out to all of the night shift. You guys are out there working like dogs on the night crew, man, and killing it, slaving away. So this episode is for you. Okay, so apostate congregation, like and subscribe to the channel. We are talking about William Morgan's book, Illustrations of Masonry. Okay, and this is a series. Okay, so this is going to be, what is this, episode 19, chapter 17. Okay, so to recap our last episode, and I want to ask you a question as well, apostate congregation. So in our last episode, my earphones died and I had to cut it short, so I wasn't able to get to the rest of what I wanted to get to. But apostates, there's stuff that is not being said in the last 4 episodes. Okay, we're talking about the death and resurrection of Hiram Abiff, right? This is, we're recapping the last episode, right? So what, in Mormon terms, in magical terms, right? What do we call this? The resurrection of a dead body. Necromancy. Okay, but I never said the words necromancy. Okay, but that is a necromantic story. Okay, the resurrection of Hiram Abiff. Okay, right? Equate that to Mormonism, the resurrection of Alvin. They're trying to raise Alvin, right? Okay, so there's stories within stories. You understand me? I just told you an entire story for 4 episodes, and I never once used the word necromancy. Okay, that's how important it is to, like, you have to pay attention to this stuff, right? Or you're going to miss it. So in the world of Mormonism, okay, we're talking about, these people continuously refer to folk magic. Okay, folk magic. You are not trying to raise a dead body through folk magic. You are not doing seances through folk magic. Okay, folk magic is like you have a rabbit's foot in your pocket. Okay, folk magic is when you walk up to a girl and you're like, "Hey, baby, what's your sign?" Okay, this is folk magic. Okay, you just kind of fuddle around with it, right? It doesn't really mean anything. You use it for a pickup line. You carry, don't step on a crack, you break your mama's back, right? This is folk magic. Okay, when you're legitimately doing a seance and trying to raise a dead body, you're going a little bit further than folk magic. Do you understand me? Okay, when you're in a cave, okay, when you're cutting heads off of fucking sheep and drawing circles, okay, doing treasure digging, doing all this stuff, this is going a little beyond folk magic. Okay, this is not folk magic. We are talking about specific stuff that Joseph and family and company were doing long term. They were doing this stuff long term. Okay. So this is not folk magic. Okay. This is not in the milieu of the people. The milieu of the people are not raising dead bodies. The milieu of the people are not cutting heads off of goats or sheep and jerking the blood around the circles. Okay. You understand me? This is not in the milieu of the people. The common everyday people are not cutting the heads off of goats and drawing circles. This is not folk magic. The common everyday person is not at home doing a seance. Okay? Do you understand me? This is not folk magic. We're going a little bit beyond folk magic when you get into necromancy. I mean, you know, you're digging up a dead freaking body, and you're going to say that's in the milieu of the people, the common everyday man, the common everyday person is just out there willy-nilly digging up bodies? Do you understand me? This is not folk magic. Okay? So if you were continuing the folk magic narrative, you are legitimately, strictly just trying to sell your fucking book. That's it. There is no folk magic in this story. Okay? We do not use that word on this channel. Folk magic is a 4-letter word. And we don't use 4-letter words on this channel, apostate congregation. I got my swear jar. I got my swear jar right here, you know? And guess what? It's full of peanuts. All right. Apostate congregation, like and subscribe to the channel. We're going to continue with a full battery on the headphones. It's early. Night shifters, this is for you. We are, you know, you folks are all into the necromancy magic stuff. All you crazy SOBs out there. All right. Anyways, let's keep going. We're on page 86, apostates. Remember, we're talking about the raising of the body of Hiram Abiff, okay, and how we're in the 3rd degree of Master Masonry, remember? The 3rd degree or Master Masonry, okay? And let's keep going. Page 86. I had to end abruptly due to headphones. And so here we go. We're going to continue. Jubello replied in a very peremptory manner. If you do not give me the master's word, I'll take your life. And on Hiram's refusal to give it, Jubello gave him a severe blow with the square across the left breast, on which he fled to the east gate, where he was accosted by Jubellum in the same manner, but with still more violence. Right? It just escalates, right? Think of William Morgan here, right? And how, you know, here Hiram reasoned as before. Jubellum told him that he had heard his cavilling, cavilling, with Jubella and Jubello long enough, and that he was still put off, and the temple was almost finished. Okay, remember the testaments of Solomon, right? Who is building the temple of Solomon? Okay, and he was determined to have the word or take his life. I want it so that I may be able to get wages as a master in any country which I may go for employ after the temple is finished, and that I might be able to support my wife and children. Hiram, persisting in his refusal, he gave Hiram a violent blow, which with the gavel on the forehead. Okay, now in Mormonism, the gavel is a big deal. Okay. Also, so we're on page 87 now, and remember, we're talking about Hiram Abiff and the three ruffians, Jubela, Jubelo, and Jubelum. Okay, and the speculative Masons, okay, are telling us. Well, William Morgan in his book is telling us that the speculative Masons, the Church of Masonry, he's telling us their story on the death of Hiram Abiff and how it's made up. They completely made up the story. Okay. And so in the last episode, right, we have the 12, the 15, okay, 12 apostles, or the quorum of the 12, right? So all of this stuff is in Mormonism. It's in the design of Mormonism, okay? And so this book, I say over and over again, right? This book is the blueprint for everything. For the anti-Masonic movement from 1827 on, this book is the blueprint. Illustrations of Masonry, okay? Remember, in all my other videos previous to this series, I tell you that Mormonism is the answer. Mormonism is a reply. There is no Mormon history. These books come out first. And then the Mormon apologetics. Remember, who was the first Mormon apologetic? Parley P. Pratt. I did the video on that. And his answer is to Leroy Sunderland, right? Which Leroy Sunderland's reply is to Charles Anton. Do you understand? So you got to follow this lineage, right? And then not only that, it's legitimately in the titles of the books, right? Parley P. Pratt, the title of his book, the original book, the original copy. Okay. So you have to follow these lineages. I keep telling you this, congregation. You got to follow these lineages, right? So this book is the blueprint, right? This comes out first. Southwick, Bernard, and then the Mormon book, and then the more anti-Mormon books come out, right? And so you follow this lineage, right? You follow these dates. This is why I say dates matter. You follow these dates, and you can literally watch this stuff progress through time. 1830. So in 1820, this is the story. 1830, that's the story. 1840, that's the story. You see the evolution, the snowball effect of Mormonism, right? Just the wheel of destruction slowly creeping and turning. right? It's just a giant fucking wheel of destruction. Look at the anti-Masonic movement and how many people they killed, right? Look at the Mormon movement and look at all the blood oaths and all the shit like that they killed, right? You know, so like Mormonism is nothing new. It already existed pre-1830, just under a new name, under a different name, let's say. Mormonism is the new name, right? The anti-Masons they had too much heat. They had to flee. They had to get out of Dodge. They got kicked out of town. Gee, doesn't that story sound familiar, Mormons? You understand me? Well, where did they go? Remember, the anti-Masonic movement never stopped. It just slowed down. So where did they all go? If they're so persecuted, what happened to them? Right? Morgan's dead. The political party failed. So what happens next? This new thing called Mormonism picks up. Under a new name, right? Hiram, persisting in his refusal, he gave Hiram a violent blow with the gavel on the forehead, which right? Felled, which felled him to the floor and killed him. Excuse me, apostates. They took the body and carried it out to the east gate and buried it in the rubbish till low tide at 12, or at night, which is 12 o'clock. When the three met, agreeable to appointment, and carried the body a westerly direction, okay, and buried it at the brow of a hill in a grave dug east and west 6 feet perpendicular, and made their escape. Okay? Dug at the brow of a hill. What else was dug at the brow of a hill? In a grave, due east and west 6 feet perpendicular, and made their escape. King Solomon, coming up at the temple at low 6 in the morning, as was his usual custom, found the crafts all in confusion. Okay, the crafts are the magicians, remember? And on inquiring the cause, was informed that their Grand Master Hiram Abiff was missing. And there were no plans and designs laid down on the trestle board for the crafts to pursue their labor. Right? Solomon ordered immediate search to be made in and about the temple for him. No discovery being made, he then ordered the secretary to call the roll of workmen to see if any were missing. It appearing that there were 3, Jubela, Jubelo, and Jubelum. Solomon observed, "This brings to my mind a circumstance that took place this morning. 12 fellow crafts came to me dressed in white gloves and aprons, in token of their innocence, and confessed that they 12, with 3 others, had conspired to extort the master's word from their Grand Master Hiram Abiff. And in case of his refusal to take his life. They 12 had recanted, but feared the other 3 had been base enough to carry their atrocious design in execution. Solemn immediately ordered 12 fellow crafts, okay, the magicians, to be selected from the bands of the workmen, clothed in white gloves and aprons in token of their innocence, and sent 3 east, 3 west, 3 north, and 3 south in search of the ruffians, and if found, to bring them up before him. The 3 that traveled a westerly course, coming near the coast of Joppa, Joppa, fell in with a warfaring man. Okay, think of the Bible here, or I mean, the Book of Mormon, who informed them that Joppa fell in with, who informed them that he had seen 3 men pass that way that morning, who, from their appearance and dress, were workmen from the temple, inquiring, remember in the, okay, here we go, inquiring for a passage to Ethiopia, but were unable to obtain one in consequence of an embargo which had recently been laid, okay, on all shipping. Remember, we talked about this earlier, and this stuff repeats itself because there's a message here. He's trying to tell you a message, and it's one of those things of like saying it without saying it. You understand? And so it's written like that on purpose. There's stories within stories in here, and you got to pay attention to it. Okay, there's necromancy, there's all sorts of shit in here, right? But we're unable to obtain one in consequence of the embargo which had recently been laid on all the shipping and had turned back into the country. Right? Now remember, he's telling you the full story without the commentary. Before, he was giving you the commentary, right? He was explaining everything to you. Now he's telling everything to you without the commentary, without all the explanations. He's just telling you the flat story. Okay. And remember, in the last episode, I told you from here on out, it starts to get like this, but it gets even more intense. Southwick is intense. Okay. That guy is intense. You better know your shit when you go to Southwick. Okay. And so, because you're not going to understand anything he says. Okay. So that's why I'm telling you guys to write this stuff down. You got to write these words down and pay attention, because right now you're getting the explanations and the descriptions and all of that stuff. This book is the blueprint. When we get into Southwick and Bernard, those explanations are gone. Now we just use the wording. So we're kind of being trained right now. Morgan is kind of training us for what to expect, for what's coming. Okay. So you have to, you have to take this into consideration, right? And so then as we progress in this book, the terminology progresses and it becomes more plain. It becomes regular talk, common talk, right? In 1827. So that's why I'm telling you guys to write this stuff down. Like, Morgan's book is the blueprint for what comes later. Okay. Okay, the shipping embargo. After making still further and more diligent searches, okay, now we're on page 88. And after making no further discovery, they returned to the temple and reported to Solomon the result of their pursuit and inquiries, on which Solomon directed them to go and search again, and search until they found their Grand Master Hiram Abiff, if possible, and if he was not found, the 12 who had confessed should be considered as the murderers and suffer accordingly. Okay, think of the William Morgan story. What happened to William Morgan? How did he die, right? They returned again in pursuit of the ruffians, and one of the three that traveled a westerly course, being more weary than the rest, sat down at the brow of a hill. Okay, I want you to think. So now we're in the story without the commentary, without William Morgan's commentary. So now from here on out, I want you to think collective. Think of Mormonism as a collective and all the stories of early Mormonism, okay? Stay in our lane. We're in our lane is early Mormonism, okay? The early days. 1830, right when it began, 1830 to when Joseph Smith dies, right? As the church was then, right? The Church of Christ, as it was then, all of the stories, all of the ceremonies, everything you've ever heard about early Mormonism, okay? You know, the death of Joseph, the raising of his brother Alvin, all the stuff that, his mother says about magic, everything. The 12, the quorum of the 12, the 15, all that stuff. The temple ceremonies, the garments, the gloves, legit fucking everything is in this story, is in this book. It's crazy. Okay, so after making no further discovery, we're on page 88. They returned to the temple and reported to Solomon the result of their pursuit and inquiries, on which Solomon directed them to go and search again, and search until they found their Grand Master Hiram Abiff, if possible. And if he was not found, the 12 would suffer accordingly. They returned again in pursuit of the ruffians, and one of the three had traveled a westerly course, right? The three witnesses, being more weary than the rest, sat down at the brow of a hill to rest and to refresh himself, and in attempting to rise, caught hold of a spring of cassia, Cassia, which easily gave way and excited his curiosity, and made him suspicious of a deception. All because of Nicatia, because it gave way easily. On which he hailed his companions, who immediately assembled, and on the examination found that the earth had been recently moved. And on moving the rubbish, discovered the appearance of a grave. And while they were confabulating about what measure to take, they heard voices issuing from a cavern in the clefts of the rocks. Okay? They heard a voice issuing from the cavern from the clefts of the rocks, on which they immediately repaired to the place where they heard the voice of Jebula exclaim, "Oh!" Oh, exclamation point. That my throat had been cut across, my tongue torn out, and my body buried in the rough sands of the sea at low water mark, where the tide ebbs and flows twice in 24 hours, ere I had been accessory to the death of so good a man as our Grand Master Hiram Abiff. On which they distinctly heard the voice of Jubello exclaim, "Oh!" exclamation point. That my breast had been torn open, and my heart and vitals taken from thence, and thrown over my left shoulder to the valley of Jehoshaphat, there to become a prey to the wild beast of the field and virtues of the air, vultures of the air. Ere I had conspired to take the life of so good a man as the Grand Master Hiram Abiff, when they more distinctly heard the voice of Jubellum exclaim, "Oh!" exclamation. That my body had been severed in two in the midst and divided to the north and the south, my bowels burnt to the ashes in the center, and the ashes scattered by the four winds of heaven, that there might not remain the least track or trace of remembrance among men or masons, of so vile and perjured a wretch as I am, who willfully took the life of so good a man as our Grand Master Hiram Abiff. Ah! Exclamation point. Jubella and Jubello. It was I that struck him harder than you both. It was I that gave him the fatal blow. It was I that killed him outright. On which they rushed forward, seized, bound, and carried them up before King Solomon. Okay, remember that they're making this stuff up, but this is the legit story of the death of William Morgan. Okay, it's just told differently, but it's the same story. Joseph Smith is the same thing. It's told differently, but it's the same story. Okay, Laban in the Book of Mormon. It's told differently, but it's the same story. Okay. Who, after hearing the testimony of the three fellow crafts and the three ruffians, having plead guilty, ordered them to be taken out at the west gate of the temple and executed. Okay, so that just reminds me of a thing, right? Remember when in our videos of it, is Joseph Smith a real person? We talk about the particulars. Nobody can describe the particulars of Joseph Smith. Okay, nobody knows what he looks like. Nobody has ever seen him, and when people do see him in the literature, the authors all take notice when Joseph is around people. Okay, other than the handlers, some of these authors refer to the, the 12, the quorum of the 12 and the apostles and all this kind of shit, right? Uh, the common people, they all act as if it was like the first time they had ever seen Joseph, right? They're all like oohing and awing, like they finally get to see him, they finally get to like, wow, that's the prophet. So like nobody knows this guy. And then the stories that you get, they're all different. The descriptions are completely different, right? So they take the particulars, right? The details. The details are what they change in these stories. They keep the story and the underlining meaning of the story is still there. But the particulars, the details, is what changes. Okay? And that's what the LDS ear catches when we read this stuff, is those details. Okay, we're like, what? That's Mormonism right there. We're in the anti-Masonic movement, right? And we're telling allegorical stories about Mormonism right now. Because this stuff becomes Mormonism. Do you understand me? We are legitimately talking about a religious institution of Masonry, the Church of Masonry. William Morgan's blueprint or book is the blueprint. This stuff becomes Mormonism. Because in 1827, William Morgan is telling us how this religious institution operates. He's telling us all the signs and the oaths and all that stuff. This is a religious institution of Masonry. Okay? He is telling us right now about the Mormon Church in 1827. There is no Mormon Church in 1827. Do you understand me? Okay? This is the blueprint. This is Mormonism right here. He is telling you about Mormonism right now in 1827. But it's not called Mormonism. It's called speculative Masonry. This new thing that is called Freemasonry. There's no such thing as Freemasonry. These people are creating it. And William Morgan is legit telling you that. This stuff does not exist. These people are creating this. Okay? And it comes from previous religions. Okay? That's what they're telling you. This stuff is in context of what I am talking about. This is the Mormon story in 1820. Do you understand? This is the LDS story pre-Joseph Smith. Okay? Joseph Smith did not create anything. He is the new guy. And then he dies. He becomes a martyr as well. He's the bridges the gap. He's old Mormonism to new Mormonism, right? Apostates, you got to put this stuff together. And we get all this through the books, through the literature, right? Okay, what's our time here? All right, like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This channel is not monetized. It will never be monetized. So the only way you can support this channel is to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when I come on, because I come on at total random times. As you can see right now, it's 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever time it is, right? 3 o'clock in the morning. We're going graveyard shift tonight, baby. Graveyard. So yeah, so this stuff is insane, right? When you connect these dots like that, right? William Morgan is legitimately telling us about the religious institution right now, the Church of Masonry. That's what this book is about. Keep this into perspective, right? He's telling us the story, right? The what do you want to call it? He's telling us of the inside scoop. William Morgan is, you could call him a dissenter. He's giving us the inside scoop. Okay, so let's keep going. Um, Distinctly heard the voice of Jubello exclaim, "Oh, all right, we just read that." Okay, here we go. Page 89. It was I that gave him the fatal blow. It was I that killed him outright. On which they rushed forward, seized, bound, and carried them up before King Solomon, who, after hearing the testimony of the three fellow crafts and the three ruffians, having plead guilty, ordered them to be taken out at the west gate of the temple and executed agreeable to the several imprecations of their own mouths. King Solomon then ordered 15 fellow crafts, okay, to be selected from the bands of the workmen, clothed with white gloves and aprons in token of their innocence, and sent 3 east, 3 west, 3 north, 3 south, and 3 in and about the temple in search of the body of their Grand Master Hiram Abiff. And the 3 that traveled a westerly course found it under that spring of Acacia, where a worthy brother sat down to rest and refresh himself. And on removing the earth till they came to the coffin, they involuntarily found their hands raised. What was Alvin? They raised his hand, right? They cut off his hand. They found their hands raised as herein before described. Okay, you got to understand. Okay, this is the correlation of Mormonism and this thing we call Freemasonry. Okay, here it is, right here. Where did I leave off at? All right, I'll figure it out. Anyways, here's the relation. There is specific wording, okay, in these books, like the raising of the hands, okay, right here, raising of the hands, okay. The white aprons, the white gloves, okay, these words are your correlation because these words are what Mormonism is. Now, the story, okay, we can take the story and say, well, that's not Mormonism. Okay, but then when you break down these words like this and when you put these into context of what they mean and what they represent and why they're using white gloves, okay, this stuff is what is Mormonism. This is Mormonism. The story has evolved, but everything else is the same. The details are changed. The story, it's a different story, but everything is the same. The story, okay, the story, instead of William Morgan, instead of this being about William Morgan, this book obviously has nothing to do with William Morgan. There's nothing to do with William Morgan about this book and his death. This book is not about William Morgan. It has legit nothing to fucking do with him. Okay? So you have to understand, this book is the blueprint for Mormonism. William Morgan is telling you the inside story. It changes, they perfect it, they alter it. Joseph Smith tells you in all of his writings, they alter the words. All of these stories tell you they alter the words. Okay? They're legitimately telling you this story in a different form. But all of the meanings, all of the ceremonies, all of the wordings, all this stuff, it evolves. It perfects. It gets perfected. Right? That's the important part here. That's the link. That's your link. It's everything else that's in this story that is how you relate this to Mormonism. And then when we get later on into Bernard and Southwick, we get into names. We start naming names. And those names you cannot deny. So you got to understand, apostate congregation. We are talking about the LDS Church in 1827. Solomon Southwick is writing against this religious institution of Masonry, the Church of Masonry. He's writing against it as early as 1805. Who was born in 1805? Okay, Joseph Smith. I mean, do you think the dates are coincidental here? What happens in 1827? What happens in 1826? Think of Freemasonry and Mormonism. What happens in 1827? What happens in 1826? These are the answers to these books. What happens in 1829? That's the wrong book. I'm sorry. Where's the book at? Right here. What happens in 1829? And what's the response in 1830? What's the reply in 1830? Okay. Do you understand me? These dates matter. That's why I'm doing these in chronological order. This book is first. Southwick is next. And then Bernard. Because that's what 1826, Morgan gives the book to the publisher. 1827, David C. Miller publishes the book. 1827, Southwick comes out with his book. 1829, Bernard comes out with his book. And you will legitimately see the progression of Morgan's book. Because remember, Bernard says in the preface, I take William Morgan's book and rewrite it word for word and left off the places where he left out. Okay. And if you actually read this book, you will have a very hard time deciphering this book in this one. That's how much William Morgan left out of this book. Remember, William Morgan's book is not complete. So you have to take this stuff into consideration, apostate congregation. We are legitimately talking about the LDS Church here. In the 1820s, Southwick is warning you against it as early as 1805. Okay. All right. I really lost my place this time. Okay. They will suffer accordingly. All right. Here we go. They returned again in pursuit of the ruffians, and one of the three. Are we on this page? Yeah, we're on this page, right? I don't know. We're repeating it, so it's hard to keep track of. All right, so they returned again, and in pursuit of the ruffians, and one of the three that traveled in a westerly course, being more weary than the rest, sat down at the brow of a hill to rest and refresh himself. And in attempting to rise, caught hold of a spring of acacia, which easily gave way and excited his curiosity. I swear we already read this. Removing the rubbish, discovered the appearance of a grave. And while they were, all right, here we go. You get lost. It's because it just keeps repeating itself, right? He's telling us something. He's saying, pay attention, pay attention. He's yelling at us. He keeps repeating. He's yelling at us. Pay attention to this, okay? The voices issuing from the grave, issuing from a cavern in the clefts of rocks, on which they immediately repaired to the place where they heard the voices of jubilee. I swear we freaking read all this already, right? So let's jump over to page 89. The fellow crafts. All right, here we go. I found it. Boy, we would have been effed if, that would have ended the whole rest of the episode if I had to read all that over again. All right, so anyways, here we go. We're back on track. Okay, till they came to the coffin, they involuntarily found their hands raised as herein before described, to guard their nostrils against the offensive effluvia that arose from the grave. It is also said that the body, okay, word necromancy, okay, the body had lain there 14 days, some say 15. The body was raised in the manner herein before described, carrying up to the temple and buried as explained in the closing clauses of the lecture. Not 1/3 part of the preceding history of this degree is ever given to the candidate. A few general, desultory, unconnected remarks are made to him, and he is generally referred to the manner of raising and the lecture. For information as to the particulars, okay. He is generally referred to the manner of raising and the lecture for information as to the particulars, right? There are no particulars. Here follows a charge which ought to be and sometimes is delivered to the candidate after hearing the history of the degree. Okay, that's on page 89. An address to be delivered to the candidate after the history has been given. Okay, what's our time, congregation? Okay, we're going to end right there, but I will read this, right? So we're on page 89, and this is where we will pick up on the next video. On page 89, at the bottom of the page, it says, an address to be delivered to the candidate after the history has been given. Brother, your zeal for the institution of Masonry, the progress you have made, is the mystery. And your comfort and your conformity to our regulations have pointed you out as a proper object of our favor and esteem. You are bound by duty, honor, and gratitude to be faithful to your trust, to support the dignity of your character on every occasion, and to enforce by precept and example obedience to the tenets of the order in the character of Master Mason. You are authorized to correct the errors and irregularities of our uninformed brethren. And that is where we're going to stop. We will pick up right there on the next episode. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, all of you longtime subscribers. You guys are awesome. Thanks for sticking with me. You guys are like the unsung heroes. I always talk about the new subscribers and please subscribe, right? And the old schoolers are kind of left out to dry. But so, shout out to you guys for hanging with me for all this time. It actually means quite a lot to me that you guys have kind of stuck around and watched me progress. I'm still learning. I don't know how to use YouTube. I didn't even know how to use it when I started. So I just learned what all of you mean by the comments, right? The comments, like some of you have been asking me if I delete video or comments. Not lately, but like previous, right? And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like, and you guys respond, like some of the comments, they look like they've been deleted. So the other day, it was actually yesterday, I was reading the comments on one of the videos. And I was like, what the hell? This makes no sense, right? And so then I'm thinking about it, and I was like, oh, yeah, I blocked that guy. So, yes, some of those comments are out of sequence because I have blocked people over time, right? And so what you're seeing is, you'll see somebody's comment, and then you'll see like 20 comments below it that have nothing at all to do with that guy's comment. Well, the reason for that is somebody else commented and they just kept going, and their stupidity caused them to get blocked. Okay, because I give you chances, I give people chances, hey, stop, you're being silly. Don't make me put you in the silly box. Okay, the silly box is being blocked. You're gonna get fucking blocked. Okay, I'm not interested in your shit. Okay, I'm not interested in your shit. I will block you. Okay, this is a grown-up channel. We have grown-up conversations. Okay, you people that are, you faithful defenders. I ain't got time for that. Okay, we're past these stories. Okay, we do not believe in Mormonism. This is the Mormon atheist here. We do not believe in Mormonism, the Mormon atheist. So save your shit or just be a grown-up, comment, ask questions. Everybody's welcome. Just don't be a douchebag because I will block you. And so That's what you're seeing in those comments. So for 2 years, I've been like, what the hell are these people talking about? Because I legit do not delete comments. So I seriously have for 2 years been like, what are these people talking about? Until yesterday. So this tells you how smart I am with YouTube, all right? Anyways, the only way you can help this channel is to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you are subscribed, please like the videos, like the comments, please comment. What do you think of the videos? What are your opinions? What are you reading? Are you guys reading William Morgan's book? How many of you have already jumped over to Southwick and Bernard, right? You know, who's jumped ahead so far? All right. Anyways, like and subscribe, share the channel. This is the only way to help this channel. This is support this channel is because we will never be monetized. F the commercials. Okay. Yeah, and just do something good for somebody today, congregation. Go out and mow the old guy, mow the old bastard's yard on the corner that yells at all the kids for, get off my grass, get off my lawn, you damn kids, get off my lawn. Well, that guy, go ask him if you can mow his yard. Just be like, hey, bro, can I mow the yard, trim the hedges? All right, congregation, enough. Thank you. In the words of the late, great Solomon Southwick, the ashes of Morgan will rise again, apostate congregation. We are William Morgan. Here is William Morgan. We are William Morgan. Okay. Another one in the books. Another one in the books. Another chapter down. See you on the other side, congregation.